We want to talk about the main pieces of legislation. You've got a bill in the Senate right now. What can you tell us about that? Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is aiming to send a revised version of that health care bill to the Congressional Budget Office as soon as tomorrow. Will you vote for the bill on the table?
What we've got right now is a bill that needs to be fixed. I think from day one, most of us had believed that it was a starting point. We were going to get a lot of things scored in it. Part of it were the tax reductions that were being proposed, the eliminations of a lot of the taxes. Some of them will stay in. I think there's one that may not, and that would be the tax on investment returns for families that make over $250,000 a year. That's about $172 billion over a 10-year period of time, which when taken or put back into the system would allow us to make some improvements in some of the coverages moving forward for those that need it most. I tell people that one of the responsibilities of government is to take care of those that can't take care of themselves, the very young and the very old. Medicaid will be here, but we want to make sure that it's done correctly. We can't continue on with the current cost curve. It's got to be reduced. This plan that we've got in front of us would make significant changes, make it more efficient, and we begin to bend that cost curve over a 10-year period of time to the tune of about $1 trillion. That by itself is critical in the bill, but you've also got to take care of people as well.
Senator, just to be clear, you will not vote for the bill in its current form. You want these changes to take place in the next 2 weeks?
I think there's probably pretty broad agreement that we can make it better. And so I don't think we're going to be voting on this particular one. I think that's been the general consensus from day one. We wanted to see what the scores were, and then we wanted to do our best based upon those scores to make modifications in it. We're not just trying to send a bill across. What we're trying to do is to make it as good as possible, make it workable, make it stand the test of time.
Senator Mike Huckabee here. How are you? And
hi, Mike.
Give Gene my best. But let me ask you this question. It seems like there's such a rush. I mean, what is the reason that this self-imposed deadline has been there? Because it would seem that it's better to get it right than it is to get it quick. And does it matter that it happens before the recess or that it happens in a certain deadline? Doesn't it make more sense to get this bill right so it actually improves Obamacare?
Mike, you're correct. And I think that's the consensus of the vast majority of our conference. Leadership most certainly is putting pressure on us to not ignore it, not to think, well, we'll just wait for a while and think about it. They want us to have some action, but I think leadership has done a good job of pressing the issue in order to get the scores. Most of us are saying, look, we've got ideas that we think can make it better, but we've got to have them scored under the processes in the Senate. And if we don't have time to get them scored, then we can't have them be accepted into the bill itself. So you are correct, and that's exactly what we're trying to do, is make this stand the test of time. We can make this better than what it is, but once again, the proposal in front of us is better than Obamacare. In fact, the proposal we've got in front of us right now would reduce premiums by 30% by the year 2020. In South Dakota, it would help 13,000 people that have incomes under $12,000 a year that can't get coverages now through Obamacare. And there's one provision in there that I really feel strongly about, and that is, let's find out what the cost would be to actually allow individuals, the working poor, folks who have got a spouse who's working and has health care through their group. Let's make sure that those individuals have access to the same tax credits as individuals who don't have someone who's working in a group setting. Right now, under Obamacare, those people were excluded from these benefits.
Senator, it's Dagan McDowell. I want to push you on something, and I think that Governor Huckabee kind of gives this away, that he referred to improving Obamacare. So tell your constituents and the American people that this is not a repeal of Obamacare, that you're really just trying to fix it, because as I heard you, you were in favor of a tax hike that was put on investment income that was put in there by President Obama, and that's that 3.8% tax on investment income, that you're in favor of not repealing it and keeping it. So to my ears, that is, I'm in favor of standing by Obamacare.
No, I don't think that's true. I think what we're saying is we have an Obamacare headache. And part of the Obamacare headache is we have costs that are going to be ongoing. And if you're going to be responsible in managing those costs, you also have to be practical. And part of being practical is not simply saying we're going to do every single item. I'll give you another example. Guaranteed renewability of insurance, guaranteed portability of insurance, the right for young people to stay in the policy until age 26. unlimited benefits in policy so that for people that have kids that get sick, they're not going to run out of insurance
Senator,
coverages.
you are in favor of keeping that tax hike in there because, again, when you talk about managing costs, you talk about managing costs. Conservatives think managing costs is actually cutting them. Liberals think about managing costs as spending more money to meet those rising costs. So you are in favor of keeping that tax hike in there.
I personally am in favor of keeping that particular tax hike in there because if we don't, then we don't have the resources in order to take care of what would otherwise be a larger burden on the American public. People that they didn't ask for Obamacare, the costs have gone up because of Obamacare. They're stuck with it. We can't simply walk away from them and say, tough, you get the higher premiums that are coming in. We're going to repeal it, but we're not going to do anything to help you out. And so we've got an obligation to do what's right, and that is to take care of those that need it most. People that have no place else to go, they need health insurance, and Obamacare has increased the cost of health care. There's no question about that. During this time period in which we transition in and premiums start to come down, you can't just look at these folks and say, it's your problem. We have to be able to respond. And one of the ways you do that is to take part of the revenues that Obamacare included and you continue it on to help them offset those costs. And that's what we're talking about doing.
What are the risks, though, of you alienating other members that they say, we don't want to keep these taxes in here, we need a full repeal and replace, and we certainly don't want increases in taxes in the health care bill? And to the governor's point, yeah, you want to get this right, but let's not fool anybody. The clock really is ticking because you've got an election next year. And if you don't get big legislation done like health care followed by tax reform, you will lose seats next year. And the goal of the left is to take over the House to impeach the president. So we could say, yeah, we want to make sure to take all the time in the world and get this right. But there is a deadline, isn't there?
There is a deadline, but you're using the wrong reason for the deadline. By January 1st of this year, if we don't make changes, a lot of the people out there will have increases in their health care policies of up to an additional 40%. That's what's driving us to get this done. We know that sometime before September, we've got to be able to get this through the Senate. We've got to get it into the House, any differences reconciled, and get it into effect to let insurance companies know that there will be stability in the marketplace. Otherwise, you're going to see the American public with more increases because of Obamacare. That's what's driving us.
Right, sure.
That's the important part here. It's taking care of the American public and making sure that we've done everything we can to keep their prices down.
Understood.
Governor Hayes, it's Pete Hegseth briefly here. Just a cursory glance at your campaign site says that you said you will vote to repeal Obamacare. Do you believe that your constituents and Republicans will look at this bill and see it sufficiently as a repeal of a system that has devastated our health care market?
If you're suggesting that we shouldn't do this so that we cause the least amount of pain possible, my constituents sent me here to fix the problem, and they also sent me here to make the right decisions.
And part of those,
part of those decisions is to repeal and replace Obamacare. Part of that also are provisions, like I said, for people to have portability and renewability. Some of that was in place beforehand, but it's now part of Obamacare. That doesn't mean that we simply say, because it's included in Obamacare, we can't adapt it or adopt it, which we're doing right now. And part of that's because we make the health care system better in doing so.